She was the kind of woman who changed the temperature of a room without raising her voice. Not because she was loud, because she was precise. She'd walk in and you'd feel it. Heads turn, posture adjusts, conversations tighten up. Men noticed, women clocked her, and she carried herself like she already knew the effect she had. Nothing sloppy, nothing accidental. Hair, outfit, timing, eye contact, all of it looked effortless, which is exactly why it worked. The first time she spoke to me, I remember thinking, this is rare. Not just the looks, the way she moved through people, the way she made you feel like the only person in the world for 30 seconds. And for those 30 seconds, you'd swear you mattered. I thought I'd found someone high quality. Turns out I'd found someone high skill. And there's a difference every man needs to understand, especially if you're navigating modern dating after being out of it for a while. Because the lesson I learned cost me more than money. It cost me time, focus, peace, and a piece of my trust I had to rebuild the hard way. This is the story of how I learned the difference between what someone shows you and who they actually are. And if you're the kind of man who leads with loyalty, who assumes honesty until proven otherwise, who believes effort and integrity will be met with effort and integrity, then you need to hear this. Not to become bitter, not to become cold, but to become accurate. Because accuracy is what keeps you safe. She'd just been hired into a different department, but our paths crossed constantly. Meetings, hallways, the coffee station, the elevator, normal workplace stuff. And that context matters because meeting someone at work puts a layer of credibility on them that you don't even notice. They're not a profile on a screen. They're not a stranger from an app with 10 edited photos and a bio written like an advertisement. They're real. They exist in your world. They have a badge, an email signature, a manager, a schedule, a normal life, at least on paper. That gives your brain permission to trust faster than it should. The first conversation we had felt easy. Not easy like shallow small talk. Easy like someone who knows how to pull the right information out of you without making it feel like an interview. She asked questions that weren't random. She listened like she was collecting details, not to hold them against you, but to use them later. And she did. 2 weeks after one conversation, she referenced something I'd mentioned in passing, like it had actually mattered to her. That's a powerful hook. People remember how you make them feel, and she was a specialist in making people feel seen. She was intelligent, but not in a rigid academic way. More dangerous than that, social intelligence, emotional timing, quick wit, the ability to read a room and adjust her tone by half a degree so everyone leaned in. And she was beautiful, in that warm, accessible way that makes men feel like they have a chance. Like she's not some untouchable model. She's just naturally stunning and somehow still approachable. I watched her do the same thing with everyone. Coworkers, clients, the guy at the front desk, the barista downstairs. Same focused attention, same clean smile, same you matter right now energy. At the time, I thought that meant she was a good person. Now I understand something most men learn too late. Charm can be a tool, not a trait. Some people don't have a warm personality. They have a warm presentation. And there's nothing wrong with being charismatic. Charisma is not evil, but charisma without character is a problem because it feels like connection when it's actually control. Back then, I didn't know the difference. I interpreted polish as stability. I interpreted smoothness as maturity. I saw social intelligence, not social strategy. And I was already vulnerable in a way I didn't fully respect because I wasn't new to life. I wasn't some kid chasing his first crush. I'd been married, I'd been divorced, I'd rebuilt my life. And when you rebuild, you become proud of the fact that you survived. But you also carry a quiet hunger to finally get it right. That hunger makes you generous. And generosity, when it isn't protected by standards, gets exploited. Our conversations got longer. Lunch breaks turned into walks. Walks turned into we should grab coffee outside of work. Everything looked organic, unforced, natural progression. And she started sharing, not surface level, my favorite movie sharing. The kind of sharing that creates intimacy fast, childhood stories, family tension, past relationships that hurt her, dreams she said she'd never told anyone else, little cracks in the armor, just enough to make me think I was seeing something real beneath the shine. And each revelation felt like a gift, like she was choosing me, like I had special access. So I did what men do when they think they've found something worth protecting. I opened up too. I told her about my divorce, about rebuilding, about the kind of woman I wanted next, someone steady, loyal, emotionally mature. I told her what I valued, what I feared, what I wouldn't tolerate anymore. And she listened. She validated me like a therapist with perfect timing. You deserve someone who appreciates you. Most men don't have your level of self awareness. I can tell you've done the work. And I felt seen. I felt respected. I felt like finally I was talking to a woman who understood the weight men carry quietly. Here's the part most men miss until they learn it the hard way. When you tell someone exactly what you want, a skilled manipulator doesn't get scared. They get a blueprint. Because I wasn't just bonding with her, I was training her how to hook me. I was handing her the exact words that would lower my guard, and she was smart enough to give them back to me. Perfectly shaped, perfectly timed. I bought her small gifts, not ridiculous stuff, nothing flashy, just thoughtful. A book she mentioned, coffee when she looked tired, a scarf when she complained about the cold. She accepted everything with gratitude that felt genuine. She never acted entitled, never demanded, never pushed. That's what made it dangerous. She didn't look like a gold digger. She looked like a good woman who just appreciated thoughtful men. In my head, we were building towards something. The connection was obvious. The trajectory was clear. I was just waiting for the right moment to make it official. And that was another vulnerability I didn't see. The workplace. Because I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to move too fast and make it awkward. I didn't want to be the office creep who misread signals. I didn't want to create drama that could damage my reputation. So I moved slowly, carefully, respectfully, and she may have been counting on exactly that. Workplace romance gives manipulation a built-in shield. You're forced to be polite. You're forced to be measured. You're forced to second guess yourself. Meanwhile, the person who's playing a game can run the game without consequences because your risk tolerance is lower than theirs. And the other thing about work, you only see one version of them, one environment, one role, one costume, one mask. You don't see how they live, who they spend weekends with, what their habits look like when nobody's watching. You think you're getting to know them because you see them daily, but you're really just watching the same performance 5 days a week. And you fill in the blanks with assumptions, favorable assumptions. That's how men get trapped, not by what they see, but by what they imagine. Here's a detail I didn't understand until later. She was always available, but never too available. If you've experienced it, you know exactly what I mean. She'd respond to texts, but not immediately. She'd accept invitations, but sometimes she had other plans that couldn't change. She was warm in person, but there was always a slight sense her attention could disappear at any moment. At the time, I respected it. I interpreted it as healthy boundaries, a full life, self respect. Now I understand what controlled availability does. It keeps you slightly unsatisfied, slightly uncertain, slightly hungry, because satisfaction kills a pursuit. If a person gives you full access too quickly, you relax, you settle, you stop chasing. Controlled availability keeps your nervous system engaged. It makes you try harder without realizing you're trying harder. It's not always malicious. Some people are genuinely busy, genuinely cautious, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a lever. And I was being managed. I just didn't know it. Eventually, I did. The thing you're supposed to do. I told her how I felt, not in some dramatic movie confession. Calm, direct, respectful. I said I'd like to explore something real with her, not just coffee and long talks. Something intentional. She didn't reject me. She also didn't accept me. She gave me a third answer, the most dangerous answer in modern dating. I need time. She said she'd been hurt. She wanted to be sure. She needed to sort through some things before she could commit to anything new. And she delivered it with such apparent sincerity, such vulnerability that my protective instincts kicked in. So I did what good men do when they care. I said I understood. I said there was no pressure. I said I'd wait. And I meant it because I believed her. Here's what men need to understand about I need time in the wrong context. Sometimes it's real, and sometimes it's a parking lot, a way to keep you close without committing, a way to keep receiving attention, gifts, emotional labor, and validation while still exploring other options. It keeps the door open for her and keeps you invested without rights. It gives her the benefits of a relationship with none of the responsibility. And it gives you the false hope that your patience will be rewarded. I waited. She kept her options open. It worked perfectly for her. Intuition is a quiet weapon. It notices patterns before your logic can explain them. Small things started bothering me. Her phone was always face down. She'd step away for calls. Weekend plans were vague, like she was careful not to create details that could be checked. If I asked about her life outside work, her answers were smooth but thin, not evasive enough to be suspicious, just incomplete. She'd share little anecdotes that felt rehearsed, and she'd redirect away from certain topics with such skill I almost didn't notice she'd done it. Another pattern. She complained about men constantly. How men only wanted one thing. How men used her. How hard it was to find someone genuine. And I listened sympathetically, doing the classic male move, silently positioning myself as the guy who isn't like that. Here's the brutal truth. When someone repeatedly describes themselves as a victim of the same kind of person, you need to ask one question. What is the common denominator? Sometimes they've been unlucky, and sometimes they're telling you who they are without realizing it. Because people who live off attention learn how to weaponize victimhood. It creates sympathy. It lowers your guard. It makes you prove you're different. It recruits you into a rescue role. And men love the rescue role because it feels like purpose. I didn't want to think she was playing me, so I didn't listen to my instincts. I kept rationalizing. I kept giving the benefit of the doubt. And that's how the trap stays closed. Not with force, but with your own hope. Money is where character leaks, because money forces consistency. Numbers don't care about your story. She was always broke, not in an obvious way. She dressed well. She looked put together, but there were constant small crises. A bill she didn't expect, a car problem, A card declined. Small borrow requests that were always just temporary, always a little awkward, always framed like she hated asking. And I helped because I told myself it wasn't about the money. It was about being a solid man, a reliable man, the kind of man who shows up. But I didn't ask the real questions. How is someone with a decent job always in emergency mode? Where is her money going? Why is there no buffer, no planning, no accountability? Financial instability is often a symptom, not a situation. It can signal impulse control issues, hidden habits, poor boundaries, a lifestyle that runs on other people's support. And here's the key: if someone is comfortable taking from you early, they will be comfortable taking from you later. It just becomes bigger. What starts as, can you spot me, becomes, can you cover this, becomes, you're being selfish when you finally say no. I didn't understand that then. I thought I was being kind, but kindness without standards is not kindness, it's permission. Truth rarely comes in one big explosion. It comes in fragments. A mutual acquaintance mentioned something casually, too casually, for it to mean nothing. A name I didn't recognize, a reference that didn't fit the story I thought I was living. And that's when I finally did the thing men avoid, because it feels insecure. I paid attention, not paranoid attention, not obsessive attention, adult attention. I started noticing patterns, timing, inconsistencies, the way certain details never lined up. And slowly, the picture changed. There was another man. Then I found out there were multiple. I wasn't unique. I was one lane in a highway. And the thing that messed with my head wasn't even the existence of other men. It was the precision of the system. Because this wasn't sloppy cheating. This was parallel relationships. Multiple emotional pipelines running at once, each man receiving a tailored version of her. Each man believing he had special access. Each man being managed with selective truth. That's what makes it so confusing for men who don't play games. Technically, she hadn't promised anything, so she could defend herself on paper. But ethically, it was predatory. She wasn't building connection. She was collecting resources. One man provided money. One man provided status and social access. One man provided emotional validation. One man provided consistent attention. Each of us served a function. And because each of us only saw our slice, we couldn't see the full machine. That's what skilled manipulators do. They compartmentalize. They give everyone just enough truth to stay believable. They avoid direct lies when possible because direct lies can be caught. They prefer omission, vagueness, controlled information because it keeps you guessing while keeping them safe. And men don't realize omission is deception until it's too late. The realization hit me in stages. First, denial. There must be an explanation. Then bargaining. Maybe it's not as serious as it looks. Then the cold clarity that finally arrives when your pride stops defending your fantasy. I had been played, not dramatically, not with evil laughter, not like a cartoon villain, quietly, efficiently, like a routine. And that's when a new kind of anger shows up. Not the loud anger, the quiet one. The one that comes from realizing you weren't even a person to her. You were a slot, an option, a resource. And once you see that, the pain changes flavor. It stops being heartbreak and becomes insult because you realize your loyalty was being used as a tool against you. I confronted her, not at work because I'm not stupid, calmly, privately, directly. I laid out what I knew, and her reaction was the real reveal. No shame, no genuine apology. No, I didn't realize I was hurting you. Just blank acknowledgement and justification. She was single, wasn't she? She hadn't promised anyone anything, had she? What was wrong with exploring options? Why was I being possessive? And technically, again, she had a point. There was no formal agreement. But men need to learn this distinction. Technical innocence is not moral innocence. You can be allowed to do something and still be a person with no integrity for doing it. Character isn't defined by what you can defend. It's defined by what you do when you don't have to be good. And what hit me hardest was how quickly she moved on from the conversation. Within minutes, she was talking about something else, like we'd been discussing weekend weather. Not a fundamental breach of trust, no reflection, no processing, no emotion, just a clean pivot. That's when I understood. This wasn't new for her. The confrontation wasn't a crisis. It was an inconvenience. One supply line closing to be replaced by another. The machine kept running. Here's the part that surprised me most. I thought I'd be devastated. I thought I'd grieve, spiral, miss her, obsess. But something strange happens when illusion collapses completely. Feelings vanish, not slowly, not after months, instantly, because the woman I was attached to wasn't real. She was a character built from my preferences. She mirrored my values back to me. She echoed my wounds. She spoke in the language I responded to. But once I saw the structure, once I saw it was a system, it was like the spell broke. You can't miss someone who never existed. That's a brutal sentence, but it's true. And it taught me something powerful. Love requires reality. What I felt wasn't love. It was attraction to a performance. And when the performance ended, so did the bond. Overnight, clean, cold clarity. Looking back, everything was transactional. Every gift I gave was received and filed. Every act of generosity created expectation. The warmth I got was proportional to my usefulness. When I provided value, attention, money, emotional support, the connection flowed. When I needed something back, there was always a reason, always a delay, always a not right now. I was viewing the dynamic as partnership. She was viewing it as exchange. We were playing different games. And here's where I take responsibility. The red flags were there early. I ignored them. The constant complaints about men, while simultaneously collecting male attention. Red flag. The financial instability despite a stable income. Red flag. The vagueness about her personal life. Red flag. The I need time that never resolved. Red flag. I rationalized all of it because I wanted the image she presented to be real. Attraction overrides observation if you let it. Hope overrides evidence if you let it. And I let it. That's not all her fault. That's on me. Because men don't get hurt only by dishonest people. Men get hurt when they refuse to accept what's right in front of them. There's another truth men need to face, especially if you're returning to dating after a marriage, a long relationship, or years out of the game. The rules changed. The assumptions you used to live by don't automatically apply anymore. Back then, spending time, sharing intimacy and consistent connection implied exclusivity. Today, it often doesn't. Today, if you don't define the relationship, you don't have one. If you don't clearly agree on exclusivity, it might not exist in the other person's mind, even if your brain thinks it's obvious. Some people use modern dating culture like a legal loophole. They'll give you emotional closeness and still claim they owe you nothing. They'll accept your investment and still call you possessive for expecting basic loyalty. So men need a new framework. Assume nothing. Verify everything. Define terms early. Not with desperation, with leadership. So what did I actually learn? Not slogans. Lessons you can use. Here are the rules I live by now. 1. Watch actions, not words. Words are cheap. Skilled people can say anything. Character shows up in patterns, reliability, consistency, accountability, how they treat people when there's no benefit. 2. Charm is not character. A woman can be magnetic and still be unstable. She can be warm and still be selfish. Don't confuse social skill with moral quality. 3. Controlled availability is a signal. If she keeps you just close enough to stay invested, but never close enough to feel secure, don't call it mystery. It's either unresolved personal issues or a strategy. Either way, it's not your job to heal it. 4. I need time requires a timeline. If someone needs time, that's fair, but time without a direction is just a holding pattern. A mature person will say, I'm not ready for X right now. Let's revisit in Y. A manipulative person will keep it vague so you stay on the hook. 5. Reciprocity is non-negotiable. If you're always giving time, money, emotional support, and she's always receiving, you're not building, you're funding. 6. Information asymmetry is danger. If she knows everything about your life and you know almost nothing about hers, you're vulnerable. A healthy connection grows with shared reality, not one-sided vulnerability. 7. Verify in real life. Meet friends. See how she lives. Observe her routines. Someone can perform a character at work or on dates. Reality is harder to fake over time. 8. Don't invest before agreement. This is where most good men lose. They give relationship benefits without relationship terms. Your time, attention, resources, those are valuable. Don't hand them out because you feel a vibe. 9. Accountability is the real attraction. When confronted with something valid, a healthy woman might not like it, but she'll process it. She'll reflect. She'll own her part. If she instantly justifies, deflects, and reframes you as the problem, you're looking at someone who will never grow with you. 10. Move slower than your feelings. Feelings can spike in weeks. Character reveals in months. Patience is protection. And one last point, because this matters if you met someone through work. Workplace romance is high risk, not because love can't happen there, but because the downside is heavier. Your reputation, your peace at your job, your ability to leave the situation cleanly. If you choose to date at work, you need stronger boundaries than you think. Keep it private. Move slow. Don't become emotionally dependent on someone you can't easily avoid. Don't give gifts that create awkwardness later. Don't share vulnerabilities that can be used against you. Because the office can turn into a cage if the wrong person is involved. People will hear a story like this and say, so you hate women now? No, I don't hate women. I hate confusion. I hate manipulation. And I hate watching good men get turned into bitter men because they didn't have a framework. Most women aren't like her, but the women who are like her are usually the best performers, which means if you're not paying attention, they'll be the ones who get access to you first. That's why you need standards. Not to punish women, to protect yourself. A man with standards can still be kind, still be warm, still be romantic. But he's not naive. He doesn't confuse chemistry with compatibility. He doesn't confuse attention with loyalty. He doesn't confuse charm with character. And he doesn't hand over his time, his resources, and his heart without clarity. If this story feels familiar, if you're hearing pieces of your own experience in it, I want you to hear this clearly. The confusion you felt wasn't because you were stupid. It's because these situations are designed to create confusion. That's the whole point. The system only works when you can't see it. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And seeing it is the first step to never paying that price again. In the next video, I'll break down a simple vetting system for modern dating, how to spot transactional behavior early, how to set boundaries without acting bitter, and how to protect your peace while still building real connection. Because the goal isn't to become cold. The goal is to become accurate, and accuracy is what keeps your life clean.